Welcome to the first ever episode of the podcast Peak Performance. And it's my first time to be the host of a podcast. And I'm very fortunate today to have with me the 2023 World Professional Snooker Champion. We're here in Bruges in Belgium. Luca's come over from his house in East Belgium, from Limburg. And it's a pleasure to have you here, Luca, today. How are you? How are you getting on?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, very good. Nice to be here in Bruges again. And I'm feeling well. Looking forward to the end of the season.
Yeah.
2 big tournaments coming up.
Which two events are they?
It's the World Open in China and then the World Championships to finish the season.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, I mentioned that you're the 2023 World Champion. And interestingly, you're the first player in history to be a mainland European player ever to win the World Championship, which is very, very special, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Obviously, to be the first one from Belgium is great, but to be the first from Europe is very special. And obviously, we only have a couple of players from Europe on the tour. So, to have an impact on that is special. And hopefully, there's going to be more people coming through from Europe now.
Yeah, I think there will be. I mean, we're starting to hear lots of other names, young players coming through. What's interesting is, Belgium, a country with about 11 million population. I think it started sort of about the 1980s, didn't it, when snooker started to become very popular. Because in Belgium, you can see BBC television, for example, and you were able to see these tournaments in Belgium. And I know for a fact that there were some businessmen here starting to import lots and lots of snooker tables. And so what do you, in your opinion, is the reason why Belgium, and in my opinion, is the best country in Europe in terms of the level of snooker that players are playing now? Have you got is there any reason for that?
I'm not sure, but I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the players we have from Belgium over the years are incredible. We've had Patrick Delsem, who's not here with us anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mario Gudens, Bjorn Hanneveer, obviously, who's been a professional for a long time. So we've had many unbelievable players.
I think there's even a few more. Steve Lemons.
Yeah, Steve Lemons.
I think, was he World Under-21 champion?
Yeah.
Also not with us anymore.
Yeah.
And there's a chap from the coast, isn't there? What's his name? I can't think what his name is just now. We'll come to it in a second. Yeah. But so many great amateur players.
Yeah.
And I think that's been one of the bigger reasons for the level of snooker growing so fast in Belgium, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. And you can feel like it used to be really popular in the 80s, maybe in the 90s. And then it maybe dropped down a little bit. And then since I became a professional, now we have Ben Mertens and Julien Leclerc. Now you can really feel it's really popular again. People really love the snooker in Belgium, and and it's a good thing for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is very popular, and when you've got players like yourself and Julien and Ben Mertens doing very well, of course, more and more people are interested in the game, and so that's fantastic for the growth of snooker going forward. Your route very quickly to becoming world champion, where did it start? What did you do? How were you practicing? How did you develop your game? What did that look like?
You mean just before the Worlds, or
let's say, even when you first started, when you were very young?
Yeah, when I was really young, I used to practice unbelievable amount of hours per day. It used to be like 10, 15 hours.
What, the same as you do today?
A little bit less, just a little bit. It was. That's where I sort of shaped my level of play in the beginning years, and then obviously I was successful quite early in the amateur scene. Youngest ever European champion.
Yeah.
Youngest ever to play at the World Championships as well at 17. So many things were happening at a young age, which also builds a lot of self-belief at a young age.
Yeah, I think that key word there, self-belief.
Yeah,
it's such a big thing.
Yeah,
genuinely feeling that it's possible to do what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and once you have that feeling, it sort of never goes away. And especially if you can back it up with performances, winning European, winning World Championships, you're always going to know I'm capable of doing that.
Sure.
So that means you're always going to have self-belief. It's been a long sort of road from when I started 9 years old to now 31 yesterday.
Proficiat.
And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And yeah, it's always ups and downs, but in the end, I think I've had a really good career already. But obviously, you always want a lot more. You want to try and win as many things as possible.
Sure.
But it's not always easy.
No, it's not easy. And we'll talk a little bit about the ups and downs of the game. You know, you're 31, relatively very young, really. I mean, you're seeing now in professional snooker where, you know, there's players getting towards their late 40s and 50s winning ranking tournaments. Yeah. You know, and I always tell the story of a guy called Tom Watson, a professional golf player, that should have won the Open Championship, the biggest golf championship in the world, against Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy. He was 59 and he was one shot of winning that tournament. So that suggests to me that snooker players can definitely perform at their best, even when they get into their 50s. But you mentioned something there about self-belief, and when you won the World Championship, there was a number of matches that, you know, that self-belief was really challenged. I mean, the Si Jiahui match where you're 14-5 behind, how did you keep that level of self-belief in that situation where you're so far behind? This guy's only got 2 or 3 frames to win to beat you, and you come back from there and win, was it 11 frames in a row?
Yeah.
Which is incredible. I think that's the most any player's ever won in consecutive frames ever in the history of the game. Mm-hmm. So, or certainly in the World Championship.
Yeah.
So how was that belief sort of helping you to do that? You know, where did you get that sort of energy and strength from?
Yeah, as I said, it sort of starts from a young age. When you're young and you're so obsessed with the game and you sort of achieve big things at an early age, that's your sort of mindset from the beginning. You believe everything is possible because I won things when I was 10. I won things when I was 11, 12.
Yeah.
Every sort of year I made progress. And you always keep that belief. Sure. And so even when I was 14-5 down against C, I always thought, well, if I get on a run and win 6 frames in a row, he will start to feel it, even if it's only 14-11 then. And that means you're back in the game.
Absolutely.
So
But you're sort of putting doubts in his mind.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about. You don't have to look at, I need to win 12 frames in a row here. You just need to try and make him think in that position because you're so far behind. You can't really think of winning. So my main goal was to just get to the last session. I needed to win 3 more frames from 14-5 down. Yeah. And then we would have an extra session the day after. And eventually it turned out to be good.
Amazing. And then, of course, you know, you beat Si Jiahui from 14-5 down. Then you went on right through the tournament to then play who is regarded as probably the best match player in the game ever. And that's a guy called Mark Selby. And not many people gave you a chance in that final. You know, you're an attacking, aggressive a player that is great to watch. But when you come up against a real proper match player like Selby, how are you going to beat him over a best of 35 frame session over 2 days? That's not going to be an easy thing. So what was your approach there? Did you have a certain strategy that you thought, you know, if I need to implement this kind of strategy here to give myself every chance of beating this guy?
Yeah, something I've always done when I sort of had to play really big games for the first time, like a world final. That was my first world final.
Yeah.
I always try to use the trick, like play as if you don't care about being there.
Right, okay.
You know? So my thing was, if I just start the first frame and play really quickly, then Mark's going to think, he doesn't really care that he's in the world final.
So you're trying to set that stage right from the off.
Yeah, obviously you need to pot all the balls to have an impact, because if you just play quick and don't pot a ball, then he's not going to be thinking anything of it.
Not affected by it.
But it turned out I made a good break of something 85 or something in the first round, in 6 minutes, I think it was. So that was sort of the perfect first step to take to the final.
Yeah.
And so that shows you also that snooker is a lot more than just potting balls. It's also feeling the situation. Yeah. Trying to intimidate. Obviously, you can't always intimidate people like Selby and Ronnie and Higgins.
Sure.
But you can always try to do something which could help.
Absolutely. And I think implementing things like that, strategies like that, to let your opponents see that you're, let's say, free-flowing, carefree, aggressive. It's the last thing your opponent wants to see, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah. And also, I turned up 10 minutes before the final. The session started at 1 or 2, and I turned up 5 to 10 minutes just before.
this was on the Sunday, the first session.
Yeah, and this was also deliberate. Because
By the way, guys, isn't it great for the first time Mr. Brecel is opening up about his game of snooker? It's fantastic to hear this.
yeah, because there's so many stories in the newspapers and in the media, and everyone has their opinion,
Yeah.
but no one really knows what's behind it.
No, well, and I've read lots of things, and I'm thinking, well, that's, I know, Luca, we've worked together for years, when you were very young, and I'm thinking, well, that's not really Luca that I'm reading about here. So people don't really know you, and it's nice that they're starting to hear about you now and hearing about your view on your game of snooker.
Yeah.
But you said there you arrived 10 minutes before on that Sunday, deliberately.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Because that was just to give Mark Selby a kind of feeling like, what's going on? Because normally if you go to the final for the first time and you want to be there 2 hours before and make sure you've practiced 1 hour and sort of seen the venue and all this kind of stuff. And again, I'm not saying that Mark Selby will crumble because of that, but you just try to be clever sometimes.
Yeah.
With experience that comes as well.
But almost like a bit of a surprise factor.
Yeah, exactly.
Shock
Yeah,
factor.
yeah.
No, interesting. It's very interesting.
He would have been practicing and thinking, where is Luca? Why is he not here already? Where is he?
He will, definitely.
He must be. So I see that of a good way of trying to play some, not mental games, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Sure. And that final, what was towards the end of the match? What scores were we at? Can you remember when you were getting to 15 and 16, and where was he and what was he doing, and how were you feeling about, my goodness, I could become world champion here? Were you thinking those kinds of thoughts about the end result and what if and what's going to be the result of this if I do really well? Or were you trying to really stay in the moment more?
Yeah, I tried to stay in the moment, but I think I was 4-1 up or 5-1 in the first session.
Yeah.
And once I had that sort of lead, I was like, I don't want to let the lead slip.
Sure.
That was my only... He can come back to 2 frames, and that's okay, but I don't want him to come back to square and even be behind and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, and then I think it was 9-8 after the first 2 sessions.
Wow.
And then the next session was the day after, and I was like, this is a big session.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to expect because I wasn't particularly confident. I wasn't negative. That was like a session, anything can happen.
Sure.
And I went out and I had 3 centuries in 4 frames and I won all of them. So suddenly I was...
You won all 4 frames?
Yeah, I was 13-8 up and I played unbelievable. So from then, that's when you start thinking in your players' room. Like,
in the changing rooms.
Yeah, in the changing room. And now it's really coming close.
It's difficult not to think like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
You see that trophy there and you start thinking all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
No, it's phenomenal how you managed to deal with that. Because like we've said, he's such a great match player. For you to beat him over 35 frames is a phenomenal achievement.
Yeah. And also with Mark Selby, they always say how great his safety is, but his break building and potting is also absolutely unbelievable. So it's not just a safety. You can't win games with safety play.
No, absolutely. Well, I think you're probably aware that I worked with Mark. I worked with Mark in 2020 and 21. So I know Mark's game. I know how he is. I know what his mindset is. I know what his strategy is. He's a brilliant scorer. He's a great long potter.
Yeah.
When they talk about his strategy and his safety and his negativity sometimes, well, sometimes you've got to implement a strategy that suits you. Mm-hmm. And also at the current time, how you're feeling. Sometimes you're not feeling great.
Exactly.
Shot selection can be a result of not feeling particularly confident.
Yeah.
It might be a shot you went for yesterday, but today, for some reason, you just don't fancy it.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to take on a ball, isn't it, that you don't really fancy taking on. Why would you do that?
Yeah, if you absolutely don't fancy it beforehand, there's no point in going for it.
No, and I think that comes down to how you're currently feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a fascinating part of it. So what did it actually mean then to get over that line and become the world professional snooker champion, lift that trophy? And I remember your dad came on. I think you were both crying, weren't you?
Yeah,
you were both in absolute tears,
Yeah.
crying with emotion
Yeah.
because of all those years of practice and effort and sadness and failure. And how do you deal with that failure? You lose and you sort of... You feel terrible, don't you? You feel like it's the end of the world sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I wish people could really know what it's all about, backstage, because they only see the players playing matches and playing big games,
Yeah.
but they don't see like all of the years before when I was 16, 17, going to Sheffield, play the qualifiers, losing every time the first season. I
Yeah.
didn't win many games, maybe 2 or 3. So that's difficult in itself because that's a big blow in your confidence at that time.
Yeah.
And deep down, you're a good player, but if you keep losing, then, I mean, you need to win again sometime to sort of
Start to
show
feel
yourself,
confident. Yeah.
that you can do it.
Yeah.
So it's not always just a guy playing snooker and enjoying life. No, there's a lot more to it, and it's
There's a lot of pain involved, isn't
a lot
there?
of pain. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
of pain. There's a lot of, and we talk about failure, but ultimately, and as I speak about in psychology, failure is the fertilizer of success. Failure resides in a certain area, but you've got to get through that failure to get the success.
Yeah.
It's not nice. It's devastating sometimes, and certainly, have you lost any matches where there's no way you felt like you should lose a match, but you did? And then you come off that match and think, like, what the heck's happened there? Have you had that situation?
Oh, many times, and also the other way around. Like, I remember when I got to the final of the UK, when I lost to Xing Tong.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was 21. Everyone was saying how unbelievable I was playing, but I wasn't actually playing that well.
Right, okay.
I just had a bit of luck at the right moments. Not the worst draw either, without sounding bad. But yeah, so it's not always if you win that you play well, and if you lose you're playing bad. That's not always the case.
No,
There's
so
much
what
more
you're
to
saying is sometimes you can play relatively poorly and win,
Yeah,
and sometimes you can play really well and get beat.
yeah,
And sometimes that can be a bit confusing, can't it?
yeah, absolutely. Because then people come up to you and they say, "Oh, it's not going well the last few months." And sometimes when you're playing not that well but winning, they say it's all great.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
as a
exactly.
player, you sort of feel when you're really playing well, and you have chances to win tournaments, because ultimately that's the goal, to have a performance that you think can win the tournament.
Right. And I think also implementing a certain strategy that suits your game, and really focus on implementing that strategy that always gives you the best possible chance.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, because let's say 6 tournaments are coming up in the next 6 weeks or 8 weeks, doesn't matter. At that moment, you want to be playing really well.
Yeah.
So let's say you have a match and you can choose one or the other. You lose this game, but you're playing really well and you're sharp in all departments, or you win that game by luck.
Yeah.
Top players will always pick the one where you're sharp in all departments, because that gives you a chance in all those coming weeks and tournaments to have a chance to win
Yeah.
tournaments.
Sure.
So
No, absolutely.
you don't have to look at I want to win this game. No, you need to look, I want my game to be in this shape so
Yeah.
I can win one of them tournaments.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And I think also what's interesting is one of the major human fears, what we fear a lot of, is what people think about us. And so when you're out in that arena and things are going the wrong way and you feel terrible, and I've even heard players say things like, I'm sat in my chair for no reason that, anything that I've done wrong. Something's happened, he's fluked a ball, and I'm sat in my chair, I'm playing terrible. I actually don't want my opponent to miss. I feel that bad that I don't even want to go back to the table. And I'm so embarrassed because of what people are thinking about me. They must think I'm useless.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt like that in that arena?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, definitely. I think all the players have experienced everything
Yeah.
at some
I think
certain
so.
moment in their career. So yeah, definitely. And also then, if you're playing really bad, you think, oh, if I get another chance, I'm gonna waste it again. So you don't want that second chance.
Because you're in the wrong state now.
Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes one good shot or one good frame can change it all around again.
Yeah.
And also, the better the player, the better the mind state most of the time. So
Yeah, I think so
the
as
top
well.
players can deal with that emotion much better than the lower players, maybe.
Yeah. So you became world champion. Which other tournaments have you won? How many ranking tournaments have you won now?
Must be 4 or 5.
Is it 4 or 5?
Yeah.
I know you won the Welsh, didn't you?
No, I won the Scottish, but that was in Wales. They played it in Wales that
The
year.
Scottish was in Wales. That was during COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. I knew it was in Wales.
Mm-hmm.
What else have you won?
China Championship.
China?
Yeah, that was 2017.
Yeah.
And then twice the Championship League.
That's 4. World
So yeah,
Championship.
4 ranking titles and 1 non-ranking.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So that begs the question. You're very, very successful. What are your goals going forward now? Have you got any major goal going forward? Is there one thing that stands out as your real, if I could achieve that, I'd be absolutely delighted. Is it a tournament win? Is it a ranking position? Is it prize money amounts? What sort of things would you say are the most important thing for you going forward?
To be honest, every season I want to really get into the top 8 and top 16 tournaments, like the Players Champs and the Tour Champs.
Yeah.
That's always quite big, which is not easy to get into.
No, because that's the 1 year ranking list, isn't it?
Yeah.
So in that 1 year alone, it's the players that are in the top 32
Yeah.
that get into the Grand Prix, top 16 players, and then top, I think it's 12, isn't
It's
it?
12 now, yeah. It used to be 8.
Yeah,
Now it's
I think
12,
that's the Tour,
Yeah.
which they're 3 elite events, aren't they? So that's one of your goals, is it? Next
That's
season?
always the goal, because every season you have the same chances as everyone else.
Yeah,
And also, obviously, the great tournaments like Shanghai, Saudi Arabia now, they feel like real elite tournaments.
Yeah.
So that's where you want to be in, and it's always difficult to get into them. Because
and that's
you need-
based on your ranking, isn't it?
you need to be top 8 or top 16 to be in them.
On the
So,
world ranking list.
Yeah.
Where are you currently ranked?
I think it's somewhere in the 40s.
Which to me sounds absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Luca Brecel, former world champion, ranked in the 40s. So, how are you going to go about fixing that situation? Because for me, that's a false position. You shouldn't be down in that. You shouldn't be in that position. And I think where are you on the 1 year ranking list? This ranking list.
700 or something.
You've talked 700, yeah. You've talked about the 1 year ranking list to be in the top 32. Where are you currently this season on the 1 year ranking list? Have you any idea? Obviously,
Yeah.
you're not in the 32.
I've never checked it, but I heard something like 92 or something.
Really?
Yeah, but obviously this season I've skipped about 8 or 9 tournaments.
Really? Has there been a reason for that? Have you not been feeling good, or there's been some illness?
I've talked about it and I've not been feeling well.
Right.
I don't want to talk too much about it because it's going to sound like an excuse, but I never use excuses. I mean,
No.
it's just the way it is, and the only way is up and forward. So, but the reason I'm 92 is because I've skipped all the big tournaments as well.
Right.
It wasn't my decision to skip them. It was just I couldn't physically play them. So
Fair enough.
which is even more frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tournaments like Saudi Arabia where you get 20,000 points to start or something.
Yeah.
I had to skip them. So that's if you
That's a
count
huge
all those
thing.
points.
Yeah. An example of that is Neil Robertson won that one tournament right at the start of the season, and that basically sets him up for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
I mean,
for 2 seasons.
500,000 points.
Yeah.
I mean, you can literally win 4 or 5 other ranking tournaments and still be ranked behind him.
Yeah.
What's your view on that? I mean, personally, I think they give too many points for one event. Wouldn't it make more sense to say, right, well, you get your 500,000 pounds, but you get 250,000 points,
Yeah.
for example?
I agree because the thing is, it's not harder to win Saudi than it is to win Welsh Open. It's just as hard.
Yeah.
There's no difference.
Sure.
So why should they get more points? Yeah. And as you say, it can be more prize money, no problem, but the points should be more equal. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Because if you win, I did it. I won the Worlds, and the next 2 seasons you're going to be top 8, whatever happens, even if you skip all the tournaments.
Does that potentially make you a little bit less likely to work really hard? Because, whatever I do for the next 2 years type of thing, my ranking's going to be fine. Does that set in a little bit? Maybe?
Sometimes, maybe. At some points, for the little smaller events, maybe sometimes you feel like just not going.
Yeah.
But personally, for me, it was because I won the Worlds, I had to do so much other stuff like exhibitions and
TV interviews.
Yeah, all those. That's what took my focus away from working hard.
It's normal, isn't it?
Yeah, because if I would win it again now, the Worlds maybe, I would do it differently. I would just keep
learned.
focused. Yeah, just you win it, and then the next day is just a normal day, and you go back to work. Like,
It's got to be difficult the first time, hasn't it? It's such a big thing, and everybody wants your time. Everybody wants Luca Brecel, world champion, TV, press, newspapers, everybody.
And also everywhere you go, outside on the streets, it's and even still now, every time I go out, there's people wanting to talk, take pictures, and it's all nice. But after winning the world championships, if you're in that world, it's very difficult to get out of that world and just focus on the snooker again.
Yeah, there's so much distraction.
So much attention. Yeah, and distraction.
Attention and distraction. Now, that's the big thing, isn't it? Distraction.
Yeah.
So you've got to be very, very careful in that situation not to allow it to affect things too much.
Yeah.
But easy to say that. You know, people have not really been through that.
No.
And, you know, on the outside world, they're probably looking at Luca thinking and having different opinions about things that you do and say, but they don't really understand what's going on behind the scenes, do they?
No, not really. And they always love to see the negative side of things, because if you would have a camera in my house, you wouldn't believe how normal my life is.
Really? Yeah. For example, what do you mean?
It couldn't be any more normal. I love to go take walks.
Yeah.
Boring long walks with a podcast in my ears. Play with the cats.
Just a normal guy.
Have a coffee in the garden. It's so simple, my life. It's really unbelievable.
Yeah, and you like that? You like it to be simple?
I love it like that, yeah. I don't go out. I don't really drink. I'm such a basic guy. And I mean, it doesn't matter what they say, but the problem is it has to be true a little bit, you know.
Sure.
The image of someone. But yeah, obviously people can't know that because they see what they see and they don't see behind the scenes.
Yeah, I've heard it from a lot of players. That I'll meet certain people and they'll say, "Yeah, you know that guy there, he's a right boring." And I'm saying, well, actually, it's completely the opposite. You know, you don't really know these personalities and characters until you actually get to know them.
Yeah,
what they're portraying on television in a match in pressure can be something completely different than what they actually are.
Yeah,
and it'll be the same for you. People will form an opinion.
Yeah,
but they don't really know Luca Brecel, do they? They don't know who that person really is.
No, it's probably the opposite of what most people think.
I think
probably the truth. Yeah.
No, interesting, very interesting. So, yeah, going forward, I think, in my opinion, as a coach, definitely preparation has to be very, very good. And you know that I'm very much into neuroscience and things like how the brain communicates with the body. You know, these little wires that come down through your brain, through your spine, into your muscles called axons.
Yeah.
And with repetition, they get myelinated, they get insulated. So there's a certain amount of repetition that has to be done to keep those axons and the communication between brain and body absolutely optimum. And I believe that a good few hours of really effective repetition on a daily basis, not every day, because you're not going to work 6 or 7 days a week practicing snooker. There's other things to do as well, but certainly, a good 5 or 6 day week doing effective repetition is now optimum from the neuroscience perspective of helping you become very habitual, creating the right, let's say, brain software, and then allowing that software to control the physical body without having to think about it too much. And that, for me, is the way that players can get into something called the zone, where it's a little bit like learning to drive a car, and in the beginning, you're all over the place. Your coordination's everywhere. And literally, months later, you can drive your car to a destination 1 hour away and not even remember that journey. Where this little piece of software that you've created, these neural connections that you've created through repetition, now become a little piece of software, and that piece of software starts to drive that car for you without you thinking about it, like walking, like eating. These little pieces of software through repetition start to control you. So I believe, personally, there's a minimum amount that a player has to do to keep that level of habitual instinct to be able to perform at their best. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, obviously it sounds all perfect. It makes perfectly sense when you say it like that.
And you've experienced it?
Yeah, many times. I mean, in the last 3 seasons, I've won 11 frames in a row twice at the World Championships. Twice. So against Ding, from 1 each to 12 1 up. And
one each to 12-1 up.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
And I should have won 13-1, but that's a different matter. And then against C the year before, from 14-5 to 14-16.
That, for me, that is a player that has to be in that zone.
Yeah.
Because to win 11 frames back-to-back is phenomenal. You must be playing at a very high level there. And
Yeah.
in my opinion, the less you're thinking about what you do, the more habitual it is, the better you're going to perform.
Yeah, and I can even remember how you feel in those moments. It's like the other guy breaks off and you're immediately looking for, oh, is there a long pot on? Because you feel so confident.
Right.
And if you're struggling, you think, oh, I hope there's nothing. Like sometimes you don't want the long pot to be on because you feel like, oh, I'm not going to get it.
But when you're not feeling great.
Yeah, but when you're feeling well, you see everything as an opportunity.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And once you get in the balls, sometimes when you're struggling and you get into the balls, you feel a bit nervous because you don't want to blow the chance.
Yeah.
When you're confident, I mean, you just want the balls to be there and it all comes so easy.
Yeah. And I also see when players are a little bit nervy or not in the right state, they start to overthink.
Yeah.
There can be a really obvious shot on the table and they'll walk around the table and they'll double think and they'll overthink it.
Yeah.
And now, of course, what's happening in the way I sort of look at neuroscience, the habits start trying to control, but the conscious brain is now getting in the way of that communication. So you're actually blocking yourself because you're not allowing things to be more instinctive.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a big part of performance. But I think you've got to have done the repetition and keep that repetition because we know if you stop repeating something, your brain unwires that skill.
Yeah.
Synaptic pruning. And that's a big part of it. So effective repetition, enough of it. And when I hear a player say, right, Chris, I've got it now. That's it. I'm done. I've got it. That frightens me to death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you've never got it.
No.
You get it, but you've got to keep it. You've got to keep that repetition going.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, and it's by the way, it's going to be great working with you again going forward. One of my jobs is to convince you and help you and to try to get you motivated to say, right, you know what, Luca, on a weekly basis now, we're going to do so many hours and you're going to get to each tournament absolutely coordinated and wired to performing.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Definitely.
Can we shake hands on that?
We can, yeah. Yeah.
Because I believe you've got so much talent and ability that if you commit properly, I think you can become, and this is important, more consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think consistency is a big word in sport.
Yeah, especially consistent performance because people think consistency means getting to a quarterfinal.
Well, you can't control that.
No.
And this is one important thing. You know, what are the things we can and can't control? You can't control results. Because otherwise you'd win every match, wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. This is the interesting thing. And, you know, players do argue with me with this one. You can't actually control your performance. Because if you could, you'd play fantastic every time. Mm-hmm. But so why don't you? And that then leads to what creates performance mostly is emotions and how you feel. Now, you can't really control them. And I'll give you an example now. If a wild lion walks through that door now, you're not going to control your emotions very well. You know, the room might start to smell a little bit different. You know, you might start to feel completely different. And that's your subconscious responding to a situation like it will in snooker. And sometimes you don't feel great. So you can't necessarily control emotion, which leads to performance, which leads to results, which begs the question, are there some things you can control? And yes, shot selection, for me, is a big one.
Yeah.
And I think somebody who's on the positive side of shot selection is thinking better thoughts, is feeling more confident and positive, and there's more likelihood they're in a better emotional state to perform. And you can also, in my opinion, help your brain to create better automatic thoughts that help through repetition, something that I call neural rewiring. And that's something that, you know, I'd love you to get back involved with.
Yeah.
And we start to identify some of your negative thoughts maybe and some of your fears potentially, which is what we're going to talk about next. You know, do you have any fears in life? Do you have any fears in your game of snooker? I mean, you mentioned about snooker missing by that. What are some of your fears in life and snooker? Can you share that?
Yeah, in life it's heights. That's one of my fears.
Heights?
Yeah.
Okay.
I should really struggle with that, but apart from that, not many. Obviously, fear of getting ill or something, or whatever.
Yeah, not normal human fears.
No, not really. No.
Okay, and so in terms of snooker, there's no real fears there for you. in the game and in your career going forward, and
No,
what
not
the
really.
next 5 years looks like?
Not really, because I always think if you wanna be successful and you have the talent and you have the experience of winning, then it's up to you.
Okay.
If it doesn't work, then that means it's something mentally maybe,
Yeah.
or something with your eyes. So if you get your eyes tested,
And they're all right.
then it must be mentally, because it can't be anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still the same human as 5 or 10 years ago. Nothing has changed. So that means it must be mentally. So I think you can control the long term of your career.
Right.
You can't control next week's game.
No.
Anything can happen. You can lose
Sure.
4-0, you can win 4-0.
Absolutely.
But you can control the next 10 to 15 years, I think.
By the choices you make.
Yeah.
By the
if you
things
do
that you
everything
decide
right, yeah. And that's also when you're in the game, as you say, you cannot control the result. You cannot control anything,
Performance.
really. But you can control maybe the habits you make, like
Right.
the way you approach the shot,
Yeah.
shot selection,
Yeah.
all those things, the things you can control. If you focus on that, then if you're not successful, then it just means you're not good enough, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. And I think what you also can control is your preparation. You know, you can't control the results and the way you perform in these big matches, but what you can do is say, right, I'm going to make sure that when I arrive at a tournament, I've done the work, I'm prepared, I'm ready to go, I'm giving myself every chance to perform at my best.
Yeah.
You can't really do much more than that.
No.
With the right attitude, I think attitude's very important. And for me, attitude equals altitude. You know, the height you go at is an attitude thing. An attitude thing is responsibility. In Dutch, verantwoordelijkheid.
Yeah.
You know, how you deal with things that you are responsible for, I think is very important.
Yeah.
So, but that word motivation, about what does motivation mean? Motive in English means reason. A reason, an action for action, a reason to take action. So if you can start to get really focused in on what excites you going forward, if I could achieve that and I could, you know, buy this or go there or do this or treat somebody to do that and come up with some real big motive, that is going to be a real driver for you to put the work in and really go for it. And it looks like you're getting really motivated, but I've never seen you as motivated, by the way.
No, it's true.
You're looking really driven.
Yeah, and I would say that's down because I've won the biggest of them all. Because your whole career or your whole life as a young player, you just want to win the Worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. It's everybody's goal, isn't it?
And you see that as something really special, and it is. But once you win that, you need to be motivated by something else.
Yes.
So my motivation now is just to be the best version of myself for the next 15, 20 years.
Yeah. And as a result of that, let's see what that produces.
Yeah,
type of
exactly,
thing.
yeah.
I'll never forget the conversation I had with a golfer called Lee Westwood. And he said exactly the same as you. I have a fear of heights. And I used an analogy. I said, right, Lee, okay, how can we get over that fear of heights? He said, well, I have a fear of heights. I said, but what if there's something more important than that fear of heights? He said, well, for example, like what? And I said, well, imagine there's a plank of wood on the floor here, 10 metres long. It's that wide and this thick, so it'll support you. And I put £10,000 on the end, cash. Could you walk along from this end, along that piece of wood, that wide, without falling off, get the cash, come back without falling off, you can keep the cash? He said, deal, I'm in. Right? Then I said, right, great. I said, but what we're going to do now is double or nothing. I'm going to put that piece of wood now across 2 Burj Khalifas in Dubai, 800 metres up, a little bit windy. And the wood's balanced on those 2 buildings now. And there's 10,000 at the end. Would you go across now? He said, Chris, you'll never get me across there in a million years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I said, but I think I can. And I'll bet you £10 I can. And he looked at me. He said, well, go on then. I said, how old's your daughter? He said, well, she's 3. What's her name? Gave the name. I said, well, she sat on the end of that piece of wood now, on the other side of that building. And she's screaming and crying and shouting your name. And you know what he said to me? You arsehole. He said, now I have no choice. Now I have no choice.
Yeah.
Now I have to go across. So all of a sudden, that fear of heights has now been changed. There's something more important than that fear of falling. It's his daughter. And I think if people can come up with something like that that really drives you, whether it's to prove somebody wrong or whatever it might be. I think that's really important. That we're going to talk about this, and we're going to try and find something that drives you so much that you're going to do everything that's necessary to get there.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that kind of thing? Could you come up with something that really drives that motive?
Yeah, to be honest, for me the best motivation is because of last year, the season I've had to miss tournaments. I've been watching. I do watch the snooker a lot.
Yeah.
So you're watching at home and you think, oh, I should be there. But this something happened which is not in my control, my physical health.
Sure, absolutely.
So, but it does make you realize how much you miss being there and playing under pressure and achieving nice things. So for me, that was the biggest motivation now, to be back there.
Okay. Yeah, I know.
Because it's only been one season, but I've really missed it.
Yeah. Well, that's good, because now you're probably going to use that as motivation and a drive to get back to where you need to be. And, for me, you being ranked where you currently are, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're a top 16 player. Let's be honest about it. You're easily good enough to be a top 16 player. And that leads me on to the final point here. Your preparation going forward. What does that look like? How are you going to go about it? I know you're going to get involved now with Loder Colson. He's going to help you with certain things, with certain areas. And he's a brilliant guy, by the way. And he's a guy that really wants the best for you, which is fantastic. And you're going to be hiring me again as a coach, which is an absolute pleasure. And I'm really looking forward to that. And I truly believe if we start to do the right things again, the success will come, because you've got that ability.
Yeah.
So are you going to structure certain things now? Are you going to prepare in certain ways? I think Loder might be putting a table up in his office, for example. Things are going to change a little bit, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%. There's going to be a lot of things coming up. And as you say, Loder only wants the best for me. He's been really good to me since I was 15. So that's a good partnership again, to be back with him. And then obviously getting you in as well. We have worked together.
Yeah.
That's been a success a couple of times.
Sure.
So yeah, just trying to do all the things right, because I'm still very young, especially in the snooker world. 31 is very young.
You're 31. You've got so many potentially big years to come.
Yeah, and also I've had the experience. I've won big tournaments already.
Yeah.
So I've seen the ups and the downs. So that sets me up perfectly, really, if I'm going to continue to work really hard with the right people and people who think big as well. Yeah. Because I always think as big as possible.
Sure, why absolutely.
And also, I see it as a fresh start, because after the Worlds, many things happened. And you sort of learn from that. You learn to be less involved with all the attention, all this distraction. You remove certain people out of your life, and then you become a better person, a better player. So I think now the best is really yet to come. With all the experience, mindset, ups and downs, experience.
Knowing what to expect.
Yeah.
Being comfortable in those big arenas.
Also,
huge part of it, because it's all about how you feel.
And in one way, I don't really need to prove anything anymore. And I don't mean that in a way like Ronnie O'Sullivan can say that. I mean, people know how well I can play, so I don't need to prove that.
No, absolutely. Well, Ronnie's praised you before, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's called you special.
Yeah.
Everybody calls him special. He says you're special.
Yeah, and that's nice, but now it's just up to me to show that consistently. That's maybe my main goal, to show what I'm really capable of, because obviously, as a snooker player, you see yourself practicing every day. You see how good you are yourself.
And I've seen that too.
Yeah, so it's all about bringing that to the match table, and then sky's the limit, I guess.
Absolutely. It's brilliant, yeah. Well, everybody, did you hear that? You're now seeing a different, more focused, more motivated Luca Brecel. Look out. And by the way, that was podcast number 1. Look out for podcast number 2 in peak performance. Thank you very much, Luca. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. Big pleasure.
Thank you.